So we have seen that if we just everything about the finite state machine, we have seen that there are basically two different category of finite state machine. One, a set of machine without output, a set of machine with output. A set of machine without output having two different finite state machine, deterministic finite automata and non-deterministic finite automata. And in case of finite state machine with output have two different category, again Mealy machine and Moore machine. In case of non-deterministic finite automata, we can see that there is a special type of NFA, we call epsilon NFA, and we have also seen that the DFA and NFA are closely related with each other. If you have a NFA, you can easily convert it to a DFA. Similarly, this Mealy machine and Moore machine is also closely related with each other. So this is all about the machine that is accepting some regular language. Now, if if we consider something beyond this, what about the languages which are not regular? If you remember my first class, the first lecture, then you will, I hope you can remember the table I have shown, where we have seen that there are four different type of language or four different type of. So if we want to consider that a particular grammar is regular or a language is regular, if I want to prove it, if someone asks you that proof that this particular language is regular, how you can prove this? We have a very easy solution, that you will design a DFA or maybe a NFA. If NFA is there, then it's then still solution exists, because you can convert easily from the NFA to DFA. That is not important. But finding some DFA or NFA, something is important. If you are able to prove it, then the language is definitely regular. But if I ask you that prove the language is not regular, then it is not a solution that you will try with some cases and finally you will say that DFA doesn't exist. How you will prove this? That DFA doesn't exist? So we prove this one in actually from a different angle. We prove this one with a theorem, what we call pumping lemma theorem. So what is pumping lemma theorem and how we can prove that? That we will come very soon. But before that, we have to understand something more. And a very important principle we have, that actually is the backbone of the pumping lemma theorem, is what we call pigeonhole principle. This pigeonhole principle is a very well-known principle. In mathematics, the pigeonhole principle states that if items are put into a container then at least one container must contain more than one item. In other words, with respect to pigeon, we can say that if there are m number of pigeons and n number of holes, and if m is greater than n, then there will be at least one hole where at least two pigeons will exist. Now, naturally, I mean, this is a very trivial situation, right? So, naturally, it seems to look very, I mean, very, some a natural solution. Yes, obviously, if the number of pigeon is greater than number of holes, obviously there will be number of some holes. Maybe at least one hole will be there where more than one pigeon will stay. That's a very trivial thing. But where the novelty of this particular principle, the novelty of this principle actually have on various solution on mathematical problems. For example, for example, suppose there is a class of student, total number of student, say is 30, and here in this, and you somehow you have to prove it that if the birthday of each and every, or birth month of each and every students, are properly distributed, then somehow you have to prove, suppose that there will be at least two students who have the same birth month. How you can prove this? You can prove it with help of this pigeonhole principle. Because with respect to pigeonhole principle, you can say that since the number of students is 30 and we have in a year there are 12 months, so basically this number of months we can say consider as a whole, and the students we can consider as a pigeon. And since 30 is greater than 12, so naturally there will be at least two students which have more than one, same birth month. There will be more than one student having the same birth month. So now question is that how we can utilize this particular principle in pumping lemma. Let's see. So before we understand the equation and all about the pumping lemma, let's try to realize it from a situation. Situation in the sense that suppose that this is a string. Okay, this is a string. I want that to check whether this string is correct or not. Suppose that this is a correct string. In a machine, it is a correct string. Now obviously, since that is a finite state machine, so there will be a particular fixed amount of states which is finite. Suppose the length of this string that I want to accept is n. Okay. And suppose the number of states that we have, say is n. Suppose the number of states in the machine is n. So what basically you have done, you have started journey from here. The machine has started journey by accepting the character from the first position, and initial state suppose is q0, and suppose after some set of time, after accepting the symbols, say from q0 to q1, then q1 to q2, q2 to q3, in this way if I consider, a time comes when the machine is in state qi. And according to the pigeonhole principle, you see, since the number of states, say, suppose let's take a situation, number of states equal to m, which is very, very lesser than n, suppose. Okay. And since this number of state is lesser than n, if I consider that this is the pigeonhole, this one, and this is the pigeon, this is the pigeon, that means I can say that on reading the characters one by one, after some time when the machine is in QI, and then from QI, after accepting some characters, somehow at some point of time, machine must come back to the QI state again. In other words, there will be at least two states for which the machine will be, there will be at least two symbols for which the machine will be in the same state, because the number of symbols is very, very greater than the number of states, or you can say the number of states is lesser than number of symbols. And if I consider that for each and every character the machine goes to a new state in this way also, and suppose after some time it reaches to QI, and according to pigeonhole principle, obviously the machine should at some point of time machine should come back to the same QI state again, and then maybe it will follow some another path to reach to QF, right? So with respect to this situation, you see, I can divide the whole thing into three parts. The first part, that is from the initial state to the QI state, a set of string that I am representing by u. I am representing it by u. The second part, that is, I started from QI, and after some again new states, I come back to QI again. So this part I can easily write with respect to, I can easily consider as a second part of the string that I am representing by V. And the third one, that is, I am taking a QI path, a new path from QI to reach to QF. So that means you can assume in this way that you started from Q0. After some time, after some path, you reach to QI, and then after going back to some path, you go back. After going to some path, you go back to QI again. This is the second part, and then from QI you take a new path to reach to QF, final state. Assume this situation. It's possible, and it should be there obviously, because the number of characters in the string is very, very greater than the number of states. So naturally there will be more than one character at least for which we will remain in the same state, and that's the part we are considering QI. By the way, so we have divided the whole string into three parts. From Q0 to QI, u from qi to qi itself and from qi to qf. Now if I modify the string a little bit, in the sense that you see I have modified, I have only taken the v part and I have added the v part with the w. What I mean, suppose the string was say a b a b a b a b b a b, suppose, and this part is u, this part is say v, suppose, and suppose this part is w. What I have done, I have repeated w twice, repeated this v twice. If I repeated this v twice, will the string be accepted in the machine? Repeated the v twice means it will be a, the new string will be a, then b, again b, then again b. So this part is remain u, this part is v first repetition, this part is v second repetition, and this part is w. Question is that will it accept it? Is it in the language? You see, we can easily realize it with respect to this particular diagram, that we know that if you are in Q0, we start from Q0, right? We start from Q0, we know. And on seeing U part, I will go from Q0 to Qi, fine. Since on seeing V, you will remain in Qi, that means for the second V part also, after reading the second V part, you will also remain in Qi. And then if you use W, you will ultimately reach to Qf. So that means this is in the language. If you repeat this V more, say repeat this V 3 times, then also it is not going to affect anything, because ultimately this Qi is coming back to Qi again. Even if you delete this V part, just take this V part out of the string. That means the new string becomes something like, if the string is A, B, B, A, B, something like this. This was my U, this was the V, and this was W. So if I just forget about this part, you just take this part out, my string become A, B, B, right? Because this is U and this is W. Will it be in the language? You see, because of this U, I came from Q0 to Qi. And since you are in Qi, and if you find W, you will go in Qf according to the rule. So that means presence of V is not important. That V part only. Whatever repetition of V you do, doesn't matter, the string has to be accepted, will be definitely accepted. So basically what we have done, we have divided the string. This is actually length of the string. This mod sign suggests the length of the string. We divided into 3 parts, such that the length, the addition of the length of the string is in the language as a whole. Okay. Now what we have seen over, what the different, why we have discussed this case, and this case, because we want to say that if we are able to represent W as U, V, we are able to represent S as U, V, W in the language, then U, V, W also in the language, U, then V any times, repetition of V any times, then W in the language, even UW in the language, that we have seen. So as a whole, this combining all this situation, I can say that U V star W in the language. V star means any combination of V, any repetition of V, right? Maybe once or two repetitions or three repetitions, even no repetition. No repetition means V is not present. And from here the pumping lemma theorem starts. So what the pumping lemma theorem say? The pumping lemma theorem say that for any regular language L, there exists an integer n such that for all x belongs to the language L, for all x is a string. Okay, for all string x belongs to the language L, where the length of the string is greater than equal to n, there exists some UVW which belongs to the combination of the alphabets, the symbols actually, such that I can write x equal to UVW. The string can be written as UVW, and there are two different rules. That is, for rule number 1 is combination of the length of U and V must be lesser than equal to n, and the length of the V must be greater than equal to 1. That means the three parts that we have divided the whole string, middle part must have at least one character. The addition of the first two parts must be lesser than equal to n. If these two conditions hold and somehow we were able to divide the string x by UVW, then we can say that for all I greater than equal to 0, UV to the power I W must be in the language. And this is what we have just seen. We are assuming that string S is accepted by the DFA. So we have just seen that if we start from 0, somehow after some couple of states I will reach to a state Qi, and this Qi will be repeated again if the string is very long and the number of state is very few than the length of the string. Then depend as per the Pigeon rule principle, somehow at some point of time I must come back to the same state Qi again, and maybe after that I can reach to the final state. But this Qi has to be repeated, and depends on that we have divided the string into three parts, UVW. And we have seen that we can actually have any repetition of V, it doesn't matter. The modified string will be accepted in the language, accepted by the machine. And this is what actually the pumping lemma say. That if you are able to divide the string into three parts, considering that first rule number 1 and rule number 2, that is length of UV lesser than equal to n and length of V greater than equal to 1, then for all I we can say that UV to the power IW must be in the language. As if that you are pumping this V many times, so that from once, twice, thrice, is something like this. The pumping lemma, the pump came actually because you are assuming that you are pumping on the V part only, so that you are increasing the length of the middle part. So in simple terms, this means that if the string V is pumped, that is V is inserted any number of times, the resultant string must be in the language. That means has to be in the string, has to be accepted by the DFA. So now why? How ultimately this is all about regular language, right? This is all about, I'm saying, we are, I mean, discussing about the regularity. I'm saying that it will be accepted by the machine or will be in the language. So if it is in the language, then how I can prove the language is not regular? Naturally, these questions come in my mind. Here we have this important note that pumping lemma is used as a proof for irregularity of a language. Thus, if a language is regular, it always satisfies the pumping lemma. If there exists at least one string made from the pumping which is not in the language, then the language is surely not regular. And the last line is vital. That means if a language is given to you and asked that you prove that this language is not regular, you have to find out at least one string for which you will not able to make the conclusion something like this, something like this one. If you are able to make a conclusion, if you are able to find that for some I, this u v to the power I w, at least for one I, this vu v to the power I w is not in the language, if you are able to show this, at least for one I, that say that, I mean proof that definitely the language is not regular. Because if the language is regular, then for all I it has to be there. I mean the equation must be proved for all I. And here we have the trick. That means somehow we have to find at least one I for which this is not in L. Then my job done. So, I mean, this is, as a step I have just shown over here that how I can prove the non-regularity of a language, that we actually follow the way of what we call contradiction. Contradiction method means that if you want to prove something, we start assuming just opposite condition in that particular example and try to prove that whatever assumption we have done was wrong. And if the assumption done is wrong, then naturally the opposite assumption will be correct. For example, since we want to prove a language is not regular, we will start assuming the language is regular. And somehow we will divide the string, some string of the language x into 3 parts, such that the two conditions exist. That is, length of uv lesser than equal to n and length of v greater than equal to 1. And then we have to find some I, at least one I, for which we can show that u v to the power I w is not in L. And if we are able to do that, that means my assumption was wrong. Because if my assumption is correct, then this particular condition will never occur. And if this condition occur, that means my assumption was wrong. So if the assumption assuming the language is regular was wrong, naturally in an opposite way I can say the correct assumption should be the language is not regular, and in this way basically we can prove a language is not regular. So this is basically the approach of proving a non-regularity of any language. In the next class we will continue with a number of examples where we will see how we can actually prove a language is not regular.